everyone, and welcome to my very first live stream. So, there will probably be a few teething troubles with this one, but this is a series I've always kind of wanted to do, and I figured it'd be a nice, interesting way to introduce the channel. I used to own an Atari ST, like many people in the UK, I guess. This was back when I was about 16 or 17. Originally, my dad had done a job for a local software company, and they were converting some of their business software from the PC to the Atari ST because the Atari ST was an up-and-coming business computer and it was being advertised as a business computer at the time. Eventually, though, it became a actual kind of home computer, and there was lots of games released for it. And as I say in the description, one of the things that happened was the cracking group started to release what were known as compact discs, which were floppy disks that contained several games on them. They wrote their own compact software, or compression software similar to like RAR and PKZip. And what they would do is take the original games and compress them down into, you'll have to excuse the noise, it's kind of a busy day and I've got all the windows open because, as you can see, it's a very hot day here in Wales. So they were compressing the games and in some cases taking them down into a single file, or just compressing all the files and putting them on the disk and releasing them with several games on each disk, as you'll see when I go through them. In this series, I'm going to go through Automation, their compact discs, because they were the most prolific group and they were the most well-known cracking group and compact disc group. They released many, I think it was 512 in total, although when it got near the end of the Atari ST lifespan, they were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but it's to be expected when a computer is dying out. So I plan on going through each disc, having a look at the menu and letting you see some of the skills that they had at coding, and going through each game on each disc. So this will be several videos in the series, as you can guess from 512 discs. During the series, we'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly of Atari ST games. Some of them are actually pretty good. The Atari ST gets kind of overlooked. Its competitor was the Amiga, and it really was no competition for the Amiga, especially when it came to sound and graphics. But it has its fans, and it had its loyal fan base at the time. So let's get on with having a look at some of these games. I'll go through each one, have a look at the menu, talk about the games a little, then have a little bit of gameplay. I'm using RetroArch to emulate. I know a lot of people don't like emulation, but it makes things nice and easy for streamers, and Atari ST emulation is actually pretty good these days. So let's get on with it. Let's have a look at the first disc. Okay, so this is disc number 0. And there you can hear the sort of typical sound of the Atari ST, that sort of pingy digital sound. You got used to it at the time, but the Amiga sound was just so much better using samples and that kind of thing. So the ST really was no competition when it came to sound. So let's have a look at Sinbad and the Throne of the Falcon first. As you can see, each time you loaded up a game, it would show you this sort of introduction screen. Sometimes it would ask you to press a key to begin the decompaction, and sometimes it would just go ahead straight for it. Let's decompact it. Now, Cinemaware were kind of an interesting company. They were really the first to try to take advantage of the graphics of the new 16-bit thing. They created what were considered to be cinematic experiences at the time. A lot of their games... Oop, that looks like it crashed. Okay, so let's skip that one. Yeah, a lot of their games were considered to be sort of cinematic experiences and kind of shallow, like Defender of the Crown. But they really did highlight the graphical power of the 16-bit systems that came out when compared to like the Spectrum or the Commodore 64 or the Atari XL. Sorry, sweat my bollocks off here. Okay, let's give Myth a try. As you can see, Myth is a text adventure game from Magnetic Scrolls, who were pretty famous for their text adventure games, and they weren't strictly text only. They had graphics in them. Um, Two of their most famous ones were Guild of Thieves and The Pawn. I remember owning The Pawn as a kid. It was just such a great adventure game and looked really good. It also played on the monochrome monitor, which is because my dad got the original Atari ST as part of a business deal. We got it with a monochrome monitor because the software he was writing was for business stuff. Eventually, we got a color monitor, and we moved from the original Atari ST to an Atari ST 520S to a 520 STFM, which had a modulator and a floppy disk built in. Okay, so that's not going to work as part of that emulator. I'll probably have to give it a go using something like Steam at a later date because, as you can see, every time I hit the enter key, it pops up the Atari core menu, which isn't really going to be very useful to look at a text adventure game, having to hit enter after every command. But as you can see, Myth is a text adventure game from Magnetic Scrolls. So let's move on to the next disc. As you can see, on this version, we have Crystal Castles, The Empire Strikes Back, North Star, Robotron, The Sentinel, Star Raiders, Trailblazers 2, and World Championship Football Manager. Now, this is version 2 of the menu. Originally, the automation menus were quite simple. You'll see one of the original ones coming up soon. But as you can see, in the later days, they had actual graphics, music, little scrollers. They kind of look like regular demos. So let's have a look at Crystal Castles. Crystal Castles was a sort of Pac-Man-ish type game. And by that, I mean eating dots in a maze. It's a conversion from the Atari Arcade. And it's actually a damn good conversion considering it's the Atari ST. Excuse the sort of noise in the background. That's my little puppy dog shaking around and her collar's making a bit of noise. But anyway, let's get on with Crystal Castles. Yeah, you can hear the typical Atari ST music sound going on there, which is a very computer generated music. And as you can see, it's sort of 3D-ish maze, very much like Pac-Man. Let's have a quick play of the game. It's a very fast and very twitchy game, as you can see. So yeah, so that was Crystal Castles. It's a pretty good arcade port when you look at the actual arcade version. I'll take a look at the arcade version at some point in the future. Probably do a sort of retro core type thing where I compare different versions of the same game. So let's move on to the next game on the disc. So the next game on the disc is The Empire Strikes Back. Unfortunately, it doesn't play. It's kind of like Sinbad on the other one, where it just crashes out. I remember this being like that back on the original disc, unfortunately. If I had the very first release of disc number 1, it worked, but unfortunately the second version just didn't seem to work. So instead, let's get on with North Star, which is a sort of scrolling beat 'em up, and not a particularly good one. So Gremlin Graphics are a pretty old company. They were quite popular back in the day, especially on the Commodore 64. They released things like Way of Avenger and that kind of thing. And as you'll see from this, it's not bad, it's just very difficult, like a lot of Euro games were back in the day. It's quite colorful for an Atari ST game as well. Here we go, let's have a couple of minutes of gameplay. Okay, so that was North Star. As you can see, it's hard as nails. It's quite colorful. You can sort of see some of the remnants of Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum game design going on there. It has a sort of Green Beret feel, you know, slight run along, but not quite gun. Um, One of the problems that you had with games back then is that the up direction was the jump and the fire button was what shot out your arm. So that actually made it kind of difficult to control in certain cases. Let's try out the next game. Sorry to keep looking back, I have to keep checking the stream is okay on the main computer. So the next game is Robotron. As you can see, it's a conversion of the arcade game. If I remember right, it's a slight updated version. Only one joystick, unlike the arcade. But let's give it a quick play. And that was a quick look at Robotron. In a later stream, I'll probably play some of the more popular games and some of the better games, but in this one I just want to go through the discs and have a look at the various games, the various menus and that kind of thing. As you can see, it suffered a bit of slowdown, and I remember that happening on the actual on the actual original hardware. I'll be back in just 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. A little bit of a doggy emergency going on there. So let's have a look at the next game. Yeah, as I was saying anyway, that was Robotron. It had some slowdown on the actual original hardware, if I remember right, but we're going back a very long time since I originally played it. So the next game up is the Sentinel, and I remember this one causing quite a big stir when it originally came out because of the graphics. I never really got into it myself, but a friend of mine who had an Atari ST really enjoyed the game. It's a sort of strategy type game. I probably won't play this one for very long, obviously, but let's have a quick look at it so you can see the graphics and whatnot. So you can tell it's cracked by a British person because it's cracked by a pie eater. And you know, that's what we do here in the UK. We eat a lot of pie. So let's just pick a random landscape number. Yeah, it looks like I'll have to. Okay. Okay, apparently we won't be looking at that one because it doesn't seem to be cracked very well. Um, so let's just move on to the next one. I'll figure that out. Hey Ben, how's it going? Sorry. Yes, I'm mostly just testing my stream out and going through it and trying to have an actual stream so I can see what it's like. Um, yeah, so this game isn't working particularly well, obviously. I probably should have checked this one out first. I think I need to actually tinker around with the RetroArch core as well because the enter key keeps bringing up the Atari menu. But yeah, let's move on to the next game on the disc. So the next one is Star Raiders, which is an updated version of the game on the Atari 2600. Good old Atari desktop there. Hang on a second, I just need to stop my dog from chomping her butt. So this is Star Raiders. The original on the 2600 had some slightly dodgy graphics, of course, but it had the pad, the special pad that came with it, which had extra buttons and whatnot. Let's start a game up. As you can see, the good old 16-bit graphics going on there, which are obviously a lot better than the 2600 would have been, but not really much of a game going on. I can't actually remember how to play this one, so I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I played most of these games. But let's move on to the next one. Sorry, there's lots of noise going on outside at the moment. So Trailblazers 2, I can't remember this one properly, but let's have a quick look. Hang on, the dog's going a bit mental, I won't be a minute. Nice one, cheers for the share. Like I say, it's mostly just me testing out the stream and the software and whatnot, and having a look at the various options that I've got and just that kind of thing. I hope to make this into a series when I get a bit more practiced at it. Let's go with the football. As you can see, the good old scratchy Atari ST sampled sound there. Let's go with a bit harder. Okay, I do remember this one. This was quite a fun game. The graphics on this one are actually pretty good. Like that scrolling, I mean, considering that there's no actual like specialist hardware in the Atari ST, I don't think it even had horizontal hardware scrolling, or it might have been vertical hardware scrolling. Okay, I forgot how difficult this was. I probably shouldn't be talking and playing at the same time. Oh, bollocks. Okay, I forgot how fun this was. No, let's not enter a bit harder. That doesn't sound like fun to me. This is already hard enough. See? Bollocks. Yeah, okay, this game just doesn't like me. Oop. Okay, the blue one reverses your controls, apparently. Yeah, so this is one of those games where you really have to try and remember the course. I'd probably be a bit better at it with a bit of practice, but what am I gonna do? Anyway, let's move on to the next game. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the retro gaming world. I used to love this stuff. It was what I played back then. I don't think I ever actually owned an Atari 2600. I had lots of friends who did, and I borrowed one a couple of times. My most retro gaming experience was the Pong machines, because my parents had one of them. They picked it up at like a garage sale in Canada, dead cheap, and I got hooked on it. The Commodore 64 was the first real gaming computer I had, I guess. World Championship Football Manager. Let's just have a quick look at it and load it up. I'm not going to play it because, well, I'm not really a football manager kind of guy. But yeah, like I say, I love retro gaming stuff. The Atari ST that we had wasn't mine, it was my parents', like I said at the beginning of the thing. But after the Atari ST, I bought myself a Commodore Amiga, and I'll probably be playing a lot of Amiga games on stream in the future. Because there's some exceptional games for that, obviously. But yeah, the compact disc menus of the old Atari ST are just something that was kind of unique to that computer, and the ST kind of gets overlooked a lot, and I think it's a shame because there are a lot of good stuff for it. Yeah, as you can see, it's a pretty simple football manager game, um, but it's not a particularly interesting one. Let's move on to the actual next disc. Nice, yeah. The OG Xbox was great. It's what I kind of had for a while, and I hacked mine using the, I think it was the James Bond hack. I can't remember which game it was, but yeah, the action replay hack. Um, it was such a powerful computer at the time as well, or console at the time even. Although saying that, it was pretty much a computer, wasn't it? Uh, Sorry, just reading. Yeah, it's hard to believe that the Xbox is an actual retro console these days. God damn it, I feel old. And yeah, it's an amazing emulator station. Uh, this is kind of what I've been using. Hang on 1 minute, I'll just grab a couple of things. And this is what I use for emulation at the moment. I know you've got a 351V. There's my 351, but this is what I'm using now. The 505. It's a nifty little machine. It does up to Dreamcast and N64 perfectly. Hang on, just need to cough. Yeah, you're not old. I'm old. I mean, look at my hairline. God damn it. Yeah, it is. The 505 is pretty damn cool. Most of the emulation videos you see on the channel are done through that. Because it's nice and easy to record with. You just hit screen record and play away. As you can see, the menu on screen anyway. Sorry, getting distracted here. This is what the original automation menus looked like when they first started. Um, they kind of like to show off because the Atari ST was supposed to only be like 16 colors on screen at any one time, and as you can see, they like to use their nifty little tricks. Yeah, I don't blame you for wanting a Steam Deck. I wouldn't mind one myself, but I'll never ever actually be able to afford one. Yeah, it records to the internal SD card, so I can just pull it out, slap it on the PC. And it's an Android handheld as well, so I can just upload straight through Firefox to YouTube. So it's all kind of contained within that little handheld. It's quite nice. And the main thing that convinced me to actually start doing the gaming stuff. Um, let's have a look at Into the Eagle's Nest quickly. This was one of my favorite games back in the day. Sort of Gauntlet-ish. It shows that the Atari ST wasn't particularly great with scrolling, though. Although the games did get better, obviously, as people got used to it. Yeah, this is like World War II sneak into the Nazi stronghold sort of game. As you can hear, the typical ST music there, it wasn't particularly great, but the graphics aren't bad, like considering what the Atari ST was. But as you'll see from the scrolling, it's not particularly great. But it was a fun game. I used to spend a lot of time on it. Oh, bollocks. Okay, I shot the key and actually that traps me in the room, so that wasn't very smart of me. Let's just close that one off. I didn't do particularly well there, but oops. Let's just move on to the next game and ignore the fact that I made a complete tit of myself. Although saying that, you know, that is my standard operating procedure. Also, I know you're used to Australia, but god damn is it hot here today. If I remember right, this is a side-scrolling shooter run and gun type game. Yeah, that title screen looks very much like a side-scrolling run and gun game, doesn't it? Longest intro in the world. Kind of reminds me of the opening for Super Metroid for the SNES, though. Still hasn't actually let me. Oh. Okay, that was just the intro. I thought I was actually playing for a second there. Like I said, being a tit is my standard operating procedure. Okay, yeah, there we go. Probe were well known for not being particularly great at games back then. Oh, and apparently I've run out of ammo. This is another one of those typical push up to jump games that you had back then because you only had the one button. And I'm not sure what I'm doing, but apparently I'm dying quite quickly. Yeah, I didn't do very well there. Call yourself a human? How dare it accuse me of calling myself a human? Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Because like I say, I mostly just want to go through the menus and have a quick look at the various games. If we play each one for a while, it'll take me about 3 years to get through the entire collection of 512 discs. Yeah, I have to admit, I used to bash emulation back in the day. I was kind of a snobby purist. Like going way back when Mystical first came out. Yeah, definitely very much like Duke Nukem. Like the original old side-scrolling shoot-'em-up ones. Ooh, I think this looks like a Tron Light Cycle game. Oh, ooh, 3D Light Cycle game. Okay, I don't really remember this one. And I crashed. Yeah, I'm not doing very well at that one, apparently. Yeah, the Duke... I remember the original Duke Nukem games coming out on the PC, and I was actually kind of blown away because I was mostly used to the PCs being only business software style stuff, because we used them at the iTech that I was studying in for my YTS. But yeah, just the thought of graphics playing on the old CGA and EGA machines, it was kind of impressive back then. Nightmare was based off the old TV show. I'm not sure how many people would actually remember that game, that TV show these days. Yeah, sorry about the noise. I've got to have all the windows open because, like I say, it's so goddamn hot here today. It was kind of a nice hot... Oh, Activision back in the days when they actually didn't just release Call of Duty games. I mean, you can see that they've come a long way. I can't actually remember what to do here, though. I'm pressing all the buttons. I think I remember why I never played this one back in the day now. kind of jealous of the AC that you've got, I have to admit. Oh, I see. I'm using the joypad and it's actually supposed to be keyboard and joystick. Yeah, so this is one of those point and click adventure games, and I'm gonna have to use the enter key, and unfortunately that's not very good for the Atari core. I think I might actually set up Steam for the next stream. Not Steam as in the PC software thing, but PC gaming platform, but there's the Atari ST emulator called Steam, which is actually a really good emulator, but that doesn't have that problem of hitting the enter key, obviously. Okay, so Plutos, I remember this one, and it's shoot 'em up, and it's a very Euro shoot 'em up. You'll see from the graphics and just like the difficulty in the wave patterns just how Euro it is. It's no Xenon, obviously. Okay, for some reason that's not responding. I'm not sure why that wasn't responding to my actual joypad. It was working before. Yeah, I've got a fan sat down beside me, but I don't really want to put it on because it'll just overpower the microphone. Okay, there we go. The joystick's working again. As you can see, it's a very Euro shooter. Just lots of difficulty, and I do like the way that this one doesn't actually, you don't die and just immediately go back to the beginning. It's just makes you invincible for a split second. More Euro shooters really needed to do that, as most of them were hard as bollocks, like this one. I do like the fact that it got around the Atari ST sound problem by just not actually putting any music in there. This is the one, it's the one area where the Amiga just really kicked the Atari ST's ass. The sound on the Amiga is just amazing compared to the ST. Like, this is very beepy, and it got better as the lifespan of the ST went on. But yeah, in the early days it wasn't very good at all. Shooters have come a long way, really, haven't they? Yeah, when I got my Mega Drive and started getting some of the shoot 'em ups for that, I was just blown away. Like, especially as I was used to this and the Amiga stuff. Although saying that, Xenon on the Amiga was actually kind of an amazing game. Virus was an interesting one. It originally came out for the Acorn Archimedes. And it was designed basically to show off the power of the Acorn Archimedes, which was a pretty impressive computer back in the day. I think it was a RISC computer, one of the first. This is quite a difficult game. Sort of a shooter where you fly along a 3D landscape made of like a quiltwork landscape. Quite difficult to control if I remember right. There's going to be a lot of mouse clicking, so I'm just going to mute the mic for a few seconds so it doesn't annoy the hell out of everybody. Yeah, I forgot how difficult that was to control. The mouse button does the thrust, and then you use the mouse to rotate it around to get the angle that you want to fly at, and it takes some practice. As you can see, I'm suicidal. That sounds about right, really. Yeah. Like in the game, in video games, not in real life, of course. Okay, Joe Blade, I think this is another side-scrolling run-and-gun type game. Yeah, some of these take quite a while to load, even though they're decompacting from memory. Yeah, there we go. Another one with push up to jump. Okay, you can't actually see the bullets being fired either. Look at those amazing graphics. Back in the day, these were actually pretty good though. Notice how it just has a very small amount because the lack of hardware sprites on the ST and the flip screen in order to get around the scrolling problem. Although, as you'll see in later games that I play, when I get to them in the compact discs, some of the coders got really good for the Atari ST, and there's actual decent scrollings, like parallax scrolling and all that kind of thing. Whee! Damn it. That old moon jump. I can see where Virtua Fighter got its jumping physics from. Hooray! Okay, how the hell do I get more ammo though? It's been a very long time since I played this. Nope, I think this might actually be ammo. Yay. Anyway, that's a quick look at that one. I'm not sure. I don't remember this game at all. Trified 2. Was Not Was an exceptional cracker and coder back in the day. He actually lived in Manchester, if I remember right. One of my old friends used to know him. He was such a talented coder, he could actually use a hex editor to write code directly into the Commodore 64 and the Atari ST. Like use an actual disk hex editor and just write the code using hex. Gotta admit, that's pretty damned impressive. Oh, I see. Okay. It's basically Phoenix or Galaga, that Galaxians, that kind of thing. This almost has a sort of public domain shareware kind of feel to it. But back in the day, this also kind of passed for actual commercial software. So it's hard to tell, really. I don't actually remember this one, though. I mean, I will have had this disc, but I don't remember this actual game. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's move on to the next disc. Like, the first few discs weren't particularly great. It took them quite a while to actually get going, because this is not the height of the Atari ST popularity, but just as it was starting to get popular, and you can see that there was arcade conversions coming like Rolling Thunder, which wasn't a particularly... Oop, hang on one second. I think somebody just walked into our wall. Hang on. Okay, yeah. The wall between our house and our neighbor's house is kind of crumbling and falling apart, and somebody accidentally banged into it and 2 bricks fell off. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say about that one. I'm going to end the stream here now anyway, because I've been streaming about an hour. Didn't really get through a lot of games. I'm sorry about that, but I'm probably going to be streaming every day because I'm now on a break from the uni degree until like September. So I'm going to be streaming on the laptop here. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm probably going to be doing sort of philosophy streams, but the other days I'm going to be doing game streams. I've also got a Twitch where I just stream direct and don't really chat. I just play games. Um, though I am trying to set it up so that I can actually chat and game on the main desktop PC, but I don't have a webcam for that. And I feel like for something like this, I kind of need a webcam, and it makes it more interesting to see me while I go through the games. So, cheers for joining, Ben. I really appreciate that. You helped me realize that stuff is actually going out. My voice is going out and all that. I was just going to check the actual recording of the stream on YouTube afterwards. I'm probably going to get better as I go along. I'm mostly used to doing the philosophy streaming, as you know. But yeah, I'll start off with this disc tomorrow. I'm going to see about setting it up with Steam instead of RetroArch so that I don't have the problem with the enter key.